Vikings fans, today is pure adrenaline. The team is locked in trying to ruin the Seattle Seahawks afternoon, and the Vikings just got a huge update on a key piece of their pass rush. There is a rookie making his first start and taking on the pressure as the starting quarterback, and another rising player being compared to a quarterback with a contract worth $265 million. Meanwhile, in the back of the locker room, a direct shot at the coaching staff is stirring up drama and putting the spotlight right on this Vikings staff. And the weight of all of this lands squarely on the shoulders of everyone who lives and breathes Vikings football for real. Before we dive into all of it, let me talk to you for a quick second. If you are not subscribed yet, think about hitting that button because it costs you nothing and it helps a lot to keep this fan-to-fan community going strong. If these videos help you make sense of what is going on with the Vikings, go ahead and hit like, because YouTube only pushes this content to more people in purple and gold when it sees you reacting. And treat the comments like that conversation in the stands on game day. Drop your take whether you agree or disagree, because this space is built for the fan base to speak up loud. Before we talk about the rookie throwing the football, we have to look at the guy trying to chase the quarterback on the other side. The morning headline is that Jonathan Greenard is expected to be back on the field for this game against the Seahawks. The Vikings brought him over from the Houston Texans on a big deal, a 4-year contract with top pass rusher money. And in his first season in purple and gold, he delivered. Best year of his career, more than 50 tackles, 12 sacks, forced fumbles, constant pressure. He looked every bit like the player who could become the face of this defense in the front seven. In 2025, the story slipped. Injuries hit the entire defensive line. The offense did not help with time of possession, and opposing offenses started sending double teams at him on almost every snap. In 9 games, he has only 2 sacks and a few quarterback hits, nowhere near the impact everyone expected. On top of that, the shoulder injury took Greenard out of 2 straight games and left Brian Flores without his cornerstone on the edge. In a season where the team already struggles to get home on opposing passers, losing your top guy for 2 weeks felt like a punch in the mouth. Watching this team get pushed around while your main edge rusher is standing on the sideline in a hoodie will test the patience of any Defend the North lifer. The good news, according to Ian Rappaport, is that he is cleared and expected to play. That does not mean he suddenly turns into Danielle Hunter 2.0 and wrecks Seattle's offensive line by himself, but it changes a lot about how Flores can call this game. Instead of dialing up crazy blitzes every down just to create pressure, he can trust a little more in winning one-on-one and loosen up the coverage on the back end. To be honest with you, Greenard has not played at undeniable superstar level this season, but he is one of those guys whose simple presence already forces the opposing offense to tweak their protection plan. Seattle comes in with Sam Darnold distributing the ball at a high level, and every extra hit he takes because our edge rusher wins a rep is absolutely worth the effort. If Greenard can beat a few more double teams, force a fumble, kill a big third down, this defense can build some confidence and finish the season looking a lot different. And, as a bonus, it softens just a little bit of the nostalgia we all feel for the old number 99. Hold that thought, because next we flip back to the offense, where a rookie is coming out of the bottom of the depth chart and getting compared to a quarterback who came out of nowhere to lead a contender. The thing that has fans most split this week is the weight that suddenly landed on Max Brosmer's shoulders. The plan was to watch J.J. McCarthy, a top 10 pick, take over the team in 2025 and go through the normal bumps of a young quarterback. Nothing about it has been normal. He tore his meniscus, lost his entire rookie season, and then started his second year with historically bad numbers, too many interceptions, not enough yards, an offense that looked completely stuck. Then the concussion against the Green Bay Packers sent him right back into the protocol. That is where the script flips. The undrafted guy who made the roster as the third quarterback behind McCarthy and Carson Wentz now gets the starting job, whether anyone is ready or not. The interesting part is that around the league, people are already looking at Brosmer the same way they once looked at Brock Purdy in San Francisco. He is not a combine star, does not have a video game arm, and is not the guy popping up in every highlight cut, but he carries that label of makes the offense work, makes decisions quickly, does not get rattled by the heat. There was even a scout who made that comparison outright, pointing out that Purdy also came in as Plan D, a 7th-round pick, and ended up taking the job from a much higher draft pick. Obviously, the context is different, the roster is different, the coaching staff is different, but that movie always plays in a fan's head. We look at this offense loaded with weapons, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson, and it is hard to accept seeing them stuck under 20 points almost every week. To be honest with you, nobody should be putting savior pressure on Brosmer right now, but we also cannot pretend he can be much worse than McCarthy has been so far. If he simply protects the ball, finds the underneath routes, lets the playmakers go to work, and shows a little command on third down, it already changes the whole mood in the locker room. On the other sideline, Sam Darnold shows up as the quarterback of a winning team with a big contract, right after being the guy who took the Vikings to their most recent playoff trip. If Brosmer can hold his own in that comparison for 4 quarters, even if he makes mistakes, he becomes a much more serious topic for 2026. And eventually this whole conversation turns the spotlight straight onto Kevin O'Connell's call sheet, because if an undrafted rookie gets this offense humming better than the supposed franchise project, the question shifts from, is McCarthy a bust, to, are we actually developing this kid the right way? When I really slow it down and look at what is happening with J.J. McCarthy, it is impossible not to drag Kevin O'Connell into the center of the discussion. Everyone knew from day one that the kid was going to take some hits. Almost every young quarterback struggles when he becomes the starter, especially on a team that expects to be in the playoff hunt right away. The problem now is that the game plan sometimes feels like it is working against his development. And it is not just me saying this from my couch. Former Vikings offensive lineman Alex Boone has gone on a podcast and aired out exactly what a lot of people used to whisper. He talked about third downs that are way too predictable, with the defense basically knowing a pass is coming. He questioned why the team manages to get the run game going in stretches and still abandons it in situations where the smart move would be to calm things down. When you go back and watch that tape against Green Bay, for example, it jumps off the screen. The start was balanced, the run game was working, play action was hitting, Jefferson was finding space. That was the night to keep pounding the opponent on the ground. But as soon as the score tightened in the second half, a string of pass-heavy calls left McCarthy completely exposed in the pocket. Protection broke down, pressure came from everywhere, reads sped up, throws got forced. That is the kind of script that turns a young quarterback into an easy target for both the defense and the media. The wild part is that the rushing numbers do not justify this stubbornness. The yards per carry average was solid, good enough to stay on schedule and control the clock. In that scenario, you want to simplify the menu for your still developing quarterback, not ask him to solve everything by himself with his arm. To be honest with you, O'Connell is still a fantastic designer of concepts that has not vanished overnight, but the way he decides when to run, when to throw, and how much to expose McCarthy has been, at best, highly questionable. And when the offensive plan spins out like this, the criticism does not stay only with the passer. It hits the other side of the ball too, because every quick 3 and out, every interception, means more snaps for the defense and less margin for error for a group that already misses having a quarterback's worst nightmare like Danielle Hunter chasing from the edge. It is impossible to watch this defense right now and not think back to Danielle Hunter screaming off the edge, blowing up plays as if it were routine. He went from a third-round pick out of LSU with modest college production to one of the most feared pass rushers in the league. We watched that growth up close, almost 120 games, somewhere close to 90 sacks, a mountain of tackles behind the line of scrimmage, and most of all that recent season with Brian Flores where he piled up more than 16 sacks and basically carried the identity of the defense on his shoulders. Of course, the highs came with some scary lows. A serious neck injury, an entire year lost in 2020, almost all of the 2021 campaign ruined by his body breaking down. A lot of people in Vikings Nation thought the relationship had reached the breaking point. The front office doubled down on youth and depth, cleared cap space, brought in Jonathan Greenard, bet on Andrew Van Ginkel and other names to share the pass rush burden. On paper, it sounded modern. Instead of one mega contract, 2 or 3 good players generating pressure together. In reality, the bill came due with interest. While Hunter is putting up ridiculous numbers in Houston, with more than 10 sacks in 11 games and helping keep the Texans' defense among the most respected units in football, the Vikings are stuck with a little over 20 sacks total, and the team leader sitting in that 4-sack range. There are too many snaps where the pressure almost gets there but does not finish. There is no one forcing the opposing offensive coordinator to rip up the game plan every week, no one making the left tackle lose sleep the night before. The unit competes, but it lives in that middle tier that does not scare anyone in January. Of course, the money matters. Hunter's deal in Houston is massive, more than $35 million per season. The idea of trading that for 2 solid starters making a bit more than him combined can look logical on a spreadsheet. But a spreadsheet does not measure respect in the locker room. It does not quantify the weight of a 3rd and long where the quarterback knows that if he holds the ball 1 extra second, he is going to get crushed. To be honest with you, at this point, it is hard not to see that the front office underestimated how much a pass rusher of that caliber holds up the spine of an entire defense. And that impact comes right back into play now, as the Vikings get ready to face an offense led by the quarterback who revived his career in Minnesota and a play caller who knows every wrinkle of this system. You could not script a more symbolic reunion. Sometimes it feels like the NFL writes soap opera scripts just to test Vikings fans. This Sunday, in a huge game, the Vikings face the quarterback who guided them to a 14-3 season and left town as the villain after 2 brutal playoff performances. Sam Darnold is now in Seattle, running an 8-3 offense, posting strong efficiency numbers and carrying a renewed reputation around the league, while the supposed franchise plan in Minnesota is still trying to claw its way out of the mud. On the Vikings side, the starter is an undrafted rookie, Max Brosmer, while J.J. McCarthy, that top 10 pick, works his way back and tries to reset his mindset after a much choppier start to his career than anyone expected. Last offseason turned into a ghost in a hurry. Minnesota could have put serious money on the table to keep Darnold, could have held on to Daniel Jones as insurance, could have surrounded McCarthy with more veteran stability. Instead, they cut hard and went all in on the future, believing the rest of the roster would be strong enough to carry the transition. The result has been an offense falling off a cliff, with the former quarterback finding a new home, a big contract, and a shiny, rehabbed bust narrative on the other side of the country. From Darnold's point of view, the decision was clear. He heard that the franchise priority had shifted, understood that his time in Minnesota had an expiration date, and went looking for a place that would treat him as a true Plan A. In Seattle, he fit perfectly with the coaching staff, earned the trust of the locker room, and now has his head coach defending him in press conferences, saying that anyone judging him only by those final 2 games in purple and gold is missing the full tape. As if that storyline were not enough, there is also Cam Akers. Cut by Minnesota after becoming the odd man out with Aaron Jones healthy and Xavier Scott emerging, he crossed the map and signed with the Seahawks. He brings with him deep knowledge of O'Connell's offense, the protections, the route adjustments, the checkdowns, that line communication that usually stays locked inside the building. If he can steady their run game even a little, especially with Kenneth Walker banged up, Darnold's play action becomes an entirely different headache. Flores is going to stay aggressive on defense, sending blitz packages and disguises, but the 2025 version of Darnold holds onto the ball less, takes fewer sacks, and processes faster. To be honest with you, this matchup feels like a character test on both sidelines. If the Vikings defense can disrupt him, limit the damage, and prove it can still be the backbone of a competitive team, there is room to believe in adjustments. But if the former quarterback cruises against the franchise that chose not to bet on him, with help from a running back who was in the Vikings locker room just a short time ago, that wound opens back up in a way that is going to crank up the pressure on Kwesi, on O'Connell, and on the whole recent blueprint. Putting everything together from today, you can feel just how big this crossroads really is for this team. Jonathan Greenard is trying to come back and restore some defensive identity. Max Brosmer is getting a golden chance and even drawing a fairy tale-style comparison to Brock Purdy, while J.J. McCarthy struggles to find his footing in a situation that does not always protect him. Kevin O'Connell is still brilliant with concepts, but he is clearly under the microscope for how he is handling his quarterback's development, and this defense misses every single Sunday, having a backfield wrecking force like Danielle Hunter in the building. On top of that, there is an emotional reunion with Sam Darnold and Cam Akers wearing a different uniform. Either this showdown in Seattle becomes the wake-up call that forces the Vikings to correct course and get this purple and gold machine back on track, or they risk watching another talented window slip right through their fingers. So talk to me down below. Drop a comment because this space belongs to everyone who lives and breathes Vikings football. Stay tuned. SKOL Vikings, let's go.